Thank you. Well, once again, I'm having issues. Can you hear me okay, Craig? Because I never know with Zoom
I
at
can hear
this
you just
point.
fine. Yep.
There we go. Okay. So this crazy system of ours, God bless what's going on. So here we are, another Think with a Drink. This is the weekly webinar series brought to you by the Aries Foundation for Financial Education. And we are back doing our Where in the World series, Should I Retire? So at this point, we're going to probably wrap this up. This will probably be our last session until next year. And then we'll get a little funkier with it for next year in terms of taking a look, maybe go overseas, Craig, versus being in the domestic U.S. because we're getting a lot of sort of call for that, and you know, hey, what are we doing in terms of the U.S. marketplace type of thing. I
Sure.
just wanted to
That'll
make
be
sure
fun.
you make you the co-host before I forget. There we go. Okay. So this is the North and West USA, and we definitely gerrymandered the North and the West with this one in terms of what we've done. But let's just get to the steps here as we go. So just know we are recording this. You don't have to worry about it. Hopefully, I just have Craig and I in the box as far as the cameras. Microphones are off, so please keep them muted. There's a chat box. Please drop any questions into the chat box, and Craig is here to answer those questions and keep me on track as we go forward. All right, so I have the wrong things in there, so it happens, right? So your pilots for tonight. My name's Tom Alessi. I'm the president of the Aries Foundation. I've been in financial services now in my 24th year. Actually, I'm an investment advisor. That means I act as a fiduciary whenever giving any guidance or advice to my clients. Let me introduce and bring in my vice president. Craig, introduce yourself.
Sure. So I'm Craig Richardson. I'm the vice president of the Aries Foundation. I've been in financial services a little over 18 years now, and I specialize in working with families to help them define their goals and have a better relationship with their money.
And as I said, Craig will be chiming in as we go along, but he's also here to man the chat box and make sure that everything moves smoothly as we go through this evening's presentation. So we told you Think with a Drink is sponsored by the Aries Foundation. We are a nonprofit. You can visit our website. It's www.ariesfoundation.org. Our mission is trying to help everyone have a better relationship with their money, because whether you realize it or not, you are in a relationship with money. And just like every other personal relationship you have, there are behaviors and triggers that cause us to act irrationally sometimes when it comes to our money and our finances. That's all myself, Craig, the rest of the Aries team. We try to do is help everyone sort of be a little bit less emotional, a little bit more understanding as to why some of those behaviors happen.
Mhm.
All right, our disclosures. There's a lot of words on the screen, and as we know, I'm not going to read those. So just know we're a nonprofit. We do this for educational and informational purposes only. All we ever ask is that if you are going to share the material, we make it available on our website, we make it available on our YouTube channel, that you share it in an educational manner. However, myself, Craig, the rest of the Aries teams always recommend that if you have a question that is of a tax, legal, or financial, that you seek out the help of a professional. That was a lot to get through, as always, right? So now I come to the fun part of the evening. They call this Think with a Drink because we want to have this be more casual, more relaxed, and we can't think of a better way to do that if we have something cold to sip on. And I am drinking, this sounds so awesome. It is a maple syrup brown ale that is called,
Really?
yeah, I don't like the name. It's called The Pursuit of Sappiness.
The pursuit of sappiness.
Of Sappiness by our friends at Mayflower Brewing. That's America's hometown brewery down in Plymouth, Massachusetts. But
Mhm.
Mayflower always produced some pretty cool. And if you ever get a chance to visit the brewery down in Plymouth, I suggest you do it. It's always fun. They've always got some cool stuff and some funky stuff on tap there that you can try. But yeah, this is a maple brown syrup brown ale. So I'm so jacked to try it. This sounds so awesome. But if you
Pancakes?
if you were going to maybe like a roast, like a spicy grilled sausage type of
Oh,
thing, if you're
okay,
doing
yeah.
that, that would be a good fit for this type of a thing. What are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking Treehouse's Very Green.
Ooh, what is that?
I
That
don't know. It's let's see, it's not it says it's not an everyday beer for us. Looks like it's just a green, it's in the green family. It's like a juicy beer, with brewed with hops. I don't know. That's about all the information I know
well,
about.
we'll have to see. Here we go. I'm going to try this. Oh, that you can definitely get that. You don't get the maple. I don't get a lot of the syrup there, but you definitely get that brown, that texture and that. Oh, it's wonderful. Wow.
Great. I'll have to
Yeah,
try that.
yeah. No, I might just have to leave and go drink the beer because this is just this is good.
Oh, that good. Okay.
All
Have to go
right, so
retire somewhere. Right.
yes. Moving on. So, the agenda, we're going to go over the criteria, what we used for the areas, the regions, the top cities or metro areas that we chose, and then we end it with doing a trial run. This is something we think is important for everybody to sort of consider, and then a little bit about us at the end. So we're talking about the North and West here, and we sort of, jerry rigged this whole thing in terms of North and West. Because when Craig and I originally did Where in the World Should I Retire in the U.S., we did the top states, that a couple of these states that came in were in the North, specifically Minnesota and New Hampshire
Mhm.
were top states, the top in the top 10, which threw me because they're cold. Like I didn't understand that one. I just didn't get that.
Well, some
Colorado
people like
came
cold weather.
right. Well, Colorado came in as well, and so we were looking at this from like, okay, if we're going to do this, because we don't want to use California, because forget California in terms of the mess of a state that is, but we do want to use the West. But then we'll fold in some of the North, since most of the other places we were talking about were warmer and southern climes, as
Mhm.
far as that's concerned. So we sort of, rigged this thing along those lines, if you will. All right. So what criteria did we use? We do this based on well actually now because Craig insisted the last time that we did this that one of the top things we consider is breweries, right? So the craft beer scene is a criteria for this.
It should be.
Yes, but other than that, it's the aged population. How is it as far as cost of living, far as taxes are concerned? Crime rate, things to do, weather, and their pros and cons. Access to healthcare, and one of the things we talk about is international travel. So, is there an airport that's nearby?
Mhm.
Okay, so let's go. Here we go. The first one we got coming up. So we're starting with Minnesota because again, this sort of throws me that Minnesota is one of these top places that people are going to go to retire. But I guess that's the deal here. And so we chose Rochester, Minnesota. And Rochester, Minnesota is not huge in terms of the craft beer scene. There are 5 breweries, so it's sort of an up and coming thing. But there are definitely breweries in Rochester, Minnesota. Uh,
Mhm.
Average home price certainly very low as far as reasonable in terms of the rest of the country with the average home price.
Mhm.
Extremely low crime rate, but that just might be because everybody's frozen. Like who knows what's going on there in terms of committing crimes. The
Mhm.
reason we chose Rochester though is it is the home to the Mayo Clinic, so it is the world class health center as far as that. It supposedly has its own international airport. I didn't do much in terms of trying to figure out everything that was where they would fly to, but
Okay.
the Twin Cities are not that far away. I think they're like an hour or just over an hour north from Rochester.
Yeah, I didn't know Minnesota was a major hub, but
Huh?
I didn't think that Rochester was a major hub, but
It says it's an international airport, though. So
Okay.
I don't know if that means they fly to Canada, which makes them an international. That's why I'm saying I didn't do a lot of research on
That's
that
true.
part of it. But you get a lot. One of the things in the draws with Minnesota is that there is a ton of outdoor activity certainly to do. There's a lot that's accessible in Rochester itself. You get all four seasons, obviously. Some people, that's a big thing when you talk to it. And about 15% of the population is over 65. What'd you get?
Well, as far as the weather is all over the place, right? I mean, you have in January, the average is 16 degrees with 11 inches of snow, and then you have July, and your average is like 71 degrees. So, like I said, it's kind of like you said, there's not a lot of like heat going on. I mean, even in June, the average temperature is 67 degrees.
Right.
So a little bit cooler compared to most of our other retirement areas.
Yes.
Like I said, there are major hospitals there. There's also a VA hospital there. Public transportation is pretty available. And there's a lot of cultural stuff there.
Right.
Arts, ballet, concerts, lecture halls. They even have bowling, which
Yep.
is
Depends on the person, but absolutely right. So then we
right.
want to look at the cons, right? So the
Mhm.
drawbacks, right? So it's cold and it snows. So Craig just went over that the average temperature doesn't climb like the rest of the places that we're talking about, or some of them. They do have high state and property taxes. So that is one of the drawbacks. Cost of living is a little bit lower, but taxation's a little bit higher.
Yep.
And skeeters. Lots of bugs. You got lots of lakes that generates lots of bugs. We're back to the bugs. Lots of mosquitoes, basically.
It can't be all year round though, because most of the time it's pretty cold. So you're
Yeah,
probably
no. Summertime. You
summer.
get into the summer when you want to go out, when you want to be out. That's when you're going to get the bugs. What'd you
Yeah.
get?
Well, just something else to keep in mind, depending on who you are and what you're comfortable with, is that the population there isn't very diverse, right? It's 79% white.
Okay.
So from that perspective, and interesting enough, 50% of the population there is Baptist.
Oh, well, that's interesting. See,
It's
this
kind of
we just.
interesting.
So I guess if you're a white Baptist that doesn't mind the cold, you want to go to Rochester.
You're in good shape, right?
Great place
Um,
for you.
like I said, the only other consideration, like I said, is you're not getting a very long warm season, so
Right.
you're going to be in that area.
Yeah.
And like I said, while the transportation is good, you're still in the middle of the country, right?
Right.
So you're in the rural areas, so you got to travel to get to anything.
Oh, yeah, that is a factor. All right, so then we're going to move on. We're going to go to New Hampshire now. So
Hey,
we brought New Hampshire into this because New Hampshire graded out in the top 10 states when it was looking at, where in the world do you want to retire? And so we figured, okay, it is kind of north. It is the Northeast, basically, as far as that. We chose Laconia, right? So Laconia has a lower. I didn't do the brewery thing for Laconia. I missed that one here for some reason. I don't know why I missed it in Laconia, but it's got a lower cost of living. Average home cost is about 193,000. There's no sales tax. There's very low property tax in New Hampshire. The
Mhm.
medical care is fairly average. Again, they mentioned the Portsmouth or Pease or something, as far as I don't know that those airports are even open anymore, but Logan's 90 miles away, and that's not 90 miles like, hey, unless you're traveling at 5 in the morning or 9 o'clock at night, you ain't doing it in that time frame. Plenty of outdoor activities though. It is all four seasons, and there's a lot to do. You're in the lakes region, so there's all sorts of activities for that. And over 22% of the population is over age 65. So a high degree of people over age 65. What'd you get?
Pretty much the same thing. Like if you go 55 plus, yeah, you could add another 16% to that. So you're almost at 38% of the population is over 55 years old. So
Interesting. Wow.
AARP is very popular up there.
I was going to say, like
Uh,
Laconia AARP.
the other thing is, you have almost 60% of the population there that have either some college or degree or a bachelor's or a master's. So, educated area.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me with the Northeast, though. I bet you'd probably find a lot of that in the Northeast.
Once again, it's a beautiful, especially this time of year, a beautiful area to live as far as, scenic. and all that. Crime rate is very low.
Yeah.
Um, and and the cost of living isn't overly, compared to maybe some of the other areas, a little more expensive, but
Correct. Right. It's a little bit lower than the national average, essentially.
right.
Yeah. So the cons for Laconia, okay, there's no beach. Right. You've got lakes, we understand, but what we're calling a beach is salt water, not a lake, right? Um,
Hmm.
it gets cold, it snows, and you can have the New England high humidity in the summer. So for some people, that high humidity thing becomes a problem trying to do or stay active in the summertime. And then they have motorcycle week.
Ah, right. The rallies.
Yes, this
Totally.
is one of the oldest and original motorcycle week rallies, but it is there. So if that's a thing for you, great. If you're a biker, good. If you're not, that might be a turn off or something you want to avoid, basically. Or take your, I'm doing my annual vacation when bike week comes to town. There's a
Uh,
stupid rainbow thing there, Craig.
what?
There was,
Rainbow.
yeah, that just popped up on me, the rainbow
Oh,
thing.
okay.
Anyway, what do you got for cons?
Well, overall, violent crime is low nationally, but theft and motor vehicle, you know, crimes are a little higher than the national average, which is kind of interesting. But I think it's also because the average household income is about 15% less than the national average. It's
Oh,
around,
okay. So
it's
yeah,
around
you got to watch that. That
55,000
is one
versus.
of the things. It's a good point, but a good point to bring up right there. And that's for everybody as you're listening or tuning in with that, is to be looking at what that income level is on a national basis, and maybe that's what we should be doing as we go forward. Is
Well,
looking at
yeah,
that
I
because
mean,
like
and I don't know, like I said, they have a higher population that's 55 plus that may be living on fixed income. So I don't know that necessarily says that, people.
right, but I think you can make a correlation to the 55-year-olds aren't committing the crimes necessarily.
Depends on the 55-year-old, I guess.
What is that, Breaking Bad, right?
Hey, you never know, man.
You never know. All right, we're moving on. I think we're staying cold here. Yes, we're in Boise, Idaho. Boise,
Boise.
Boise, Idaho. So, Boise, Idaho, you know, the thing with Boise, Idaho, and this all comes in, there are a lot of craft breweries, but there's a huge amount of wineries out there.
Oh,
So there's over
wow.
60 wineries in and around Boise, Idaho. So if you're a wine person versus the craft beer, or maybe it's, a little bit of both, this is a spot for you with that. So there's a lot there. Home prices, as you can see, it's just about over 300,000 in Boise. It's a very, very low crime rate.
Hmm.
It's rated, in the top 100, throughout the entire country for healthcare.
Wow.
Uh, I didn't do the airport. That's why that's left there from the previous one. That's Greenville and Charlotte. So ignore that. That's from the last one. There's plenty of outdoor activities there, and over 14%. And so for our criteria with that is that we wanted places that were at least more than 10% of the population was over age 65. What did you find with Boise?
Well, I mean, it's a beautiful place to live. There's a ton of national parks. So if you're into the outdoor stuff, and then what 30 state parks includes part of Yellowstone National Park is part of Boise. So that's definitely appealing if you're an outdoor person. It gets high marks for walkability. I guess everything's flat there. So
There's
it's
something
easy
to be said for that when you get old.
the average home price is low, so cost of living is low, low medical costs, and it's a tax benefits for seniors. So sales tax in Idaho comes in at a low 6%, and prescription drugs as well, income social security are not taxable. So
Right.
they don't tax your social security income at the state level.
Yeah.
And like you said, low crime rate. And once again, it goes back to stunning scenery and four season climate and all that kind of good stuff.
So what would
So
be the cons in Boise is you do get extreme temperatures. And by that I mean that the temperatures can go very, very cold and very, very hot in the summer, right? So a lot of times people aren't geared for that, especially as we get older, having those extremes from one to the other, especially if we're getting into the months where that can happen, over a period in a short period of time, that can be extremely offsetting.
Hmm.
There is poor air quality, is my understanding in Idaho, is that because I guess with the mountains, and everything stays low, that you get a lot of pollutants in the air, basically.
Also, nothing can clear out. Right.
Correct. Right.
Mhm.
It they've got, it's land. There's a lot of space. They got nice people, but they're not necessarily going to interact, and you can get a feeling of isolation there.
Uh, mm.
And because there isn't really public transportation, so you're basically driving or needing to drive or have access to a vehicle if you're going to get yourself around or anywhere, because you are definitely in that rural type of setting. So this is for somebody who doesn't mind, being on their own. In that, we've talked about this with some of the other locations that we had talked about, like down in, the the south and other places. Like, okay, that's what I want to do. I've been living in the city my whole life. I don't want that anymore.
Yeah, I didn't get a lot of additional negatives. I mean, one that you brought up is, a lack of breweries, but even some of the other sites
There
dispute
is
that.
no lack of breweries. There's tons of them.
Oh, there's tons of breweries. I thought you said there were tons of
No, no,
vineyards.
no, no,
Or
no,
breweries.
no. They've got breweries, but they're heavy with the vineyards. There are breweries as well.
Oh, there are as well. Okay,
Yeah,
all right. Yeah, because that's what it says. What I would have been reading is it says there are tons of craft and microbreweries and vineyards all over the place.
correct. Yeah,
Um, but other than that, like I said, I think it's just back to dealing with four seasons. And do you want to go, in retirement? Is that where you want to be if you're
right.
coming sort of four season area? And you know, and like you said, the lack of transportation. I guess you could get a Segway because everything's flat, but
Yeah, I don't even know if they make those anymore. All
no.
right, so moving on. Now we're going to Nevada. So we're going to Nevada now. We're getting a little bit more into in Nevada. You've got all sorts of different. Nevada came out on the list too. It was in the top 10 basically, is with
Hmm.
Nevada. But we chose Henderson, Nevada, not
Hmm.
Las Vegas, Nevada. But Henderson is a suburb of Las Vegas, so that's why. There's plenty of local craft beer in Henderson, so they do have a scene, but you're 16 miles to the Las Vegas Strip. So anything or anything you ever wanted is within 16 miles because you can get it in the Las Vegas Strip. So basically, you've got all the action, all the shows, anything you ever wanted to do is not too far away there.
Or
Uh,
didn't want to do, right?
yeah, or didn't want to do. Average home price actually, it's a little bit more expensive, right? It,
Mhm.
Nevada is very, very tax friendly. This is the greenest city in Nevada. It is very, very environmentally friendly. It's
Mhm.
ranked as the number 2 safest city in America.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's shocking being 16 miles from Vegas.
Yeah, it's a weird, but it is the second safest city in America. Plenty of outdoor activity. There's a lot to do, the lots and lots and lots of sunshine because it's the desert basically. And
Mhm.
almost 20% of the population is over age 65.
Wow.
So it's a place. This is where people are going.
So you can find friends there your age.
What do you got?
I think what I had here is, zero state income tax,
There you go.
which is interesting.
Yep.
It says, like you said, great climate, year-round sunshine and warm winters, right?
Right.
So you're not shoveling anything.
No.
Um, it's stunning outdoors spaces, a beautiful area, and lots of parks and golf courses.
Lots of golf. Lots of
Lots of
golf.
golf.
Golf. Lots of golf. And obviously the international thing, the airport is just off the strip in Las Vegas. So you're not that far to the international airport either. So international travel is not that big of a deal.
Yeah, your population is about 300,000 people, so it's not like a very small, isolated community. There's, it's got pretty diverse because you
Yeah.
got quite a few people there.
Right,
For,
and it's got its own sort of vibe, its own attractions, its own stuff to do. But then, like we said, if you really want to take in shows or anything, God bless you, got the Vegas Strip 20 minutes away.
it's so flat, you just look out your window and you can see Vegas.
You
You can see
can see
Vegas
it.
from your
Well, like,
house.
maybe that could be a drawback. Let's see if that's a con, like the flash of neon going off in the middle of the night. So the cons, right? So one of the problems with desert atmosphere, and we went over this when we were doing Arizona, right, is that the even though it's a dry heat, those summer temperatures get into the high 110s, and that is just an extreme heat. Regardless of whether it's a dry heat, you don't feel it. Yeah, no, it's you feel it, right? So if you're somebody who enjoys doing outdoor activities, and we mean that, hiking, biking, those type of things, it become as you get older, it becomes harder and harder to do that in that extreme heat.
I remember being in Vegas and it was literally 114 degrees that day I was there. You could actually cook an egg on the sidewalk if you wanted to.
How did you know? Why would you ever have you're not supposed to leave the casino? That's my whole thing. It's like you're not supposed to leave the casino. That's
Because I was in my 20s and I was still stupid. That's why.
so cost of living, cost of housing are it's against the national average. It's more expensive to live in Nevada. And mainly a lot of that has to do with the air conditioning and all of that goes along with it, utility costs and those things. But housing, like we said, is more expensive than generally against some of the other places that we're looking at. But that's just what's happened, is because people are going there because they're looking for some other place than, say, Florida or Arizona to retire to.
Well, right. And like you said, utilities, water is a major issue
Yeah,
when you're
another one.
talking,
Yes,
right?
very much. Yeah, Lake Mead isn't too far from here either. So Lake Mead is a beautiful, but again, that's where all the bodies, all those old mobsters are being found now.
It's okay. You should have buried them deeper. That's all.
They did. They put them to the bottom, but now the lake is dry, and then they can find them all.
Well, if that whole lake dries up, we're in deep trouble. That's a pretty
Yes.
deep lake. Yeah, but like you said, there's nowhere near the ocean though. You're in the middle of the desert, right? So
Yeah, there is no beach.
there is no beach.
There's no beach. All right. So now we're going to Washington. We went to the northwest with this. It's sort of the culmination of north and west to the northwest. And we chose Vancouver, not Vancouver, Canada, Vancouver, Washington. And because a couple of reasons. One, this is like the next up and coming place for craft beer. This is like the next city for craft beer, Vancouver, Washington. Beware of that for those who then watch this later on, that, hey, look, those guys were talking about Vancouver, and now it's a cool place, right? Yes, it's a cool place. The other thing with Vancouver, it sits right on the Oregon border. So here's the deal. In Washington, there's no state tax, but they've got a high sales tax.
Mhm.
But in Oregon, there's no sales tax. So
Ah,
you can drive right over and go into Oregon and buy whatever you want, and you're not going to pay any sales tax.
kind of like
So
New Hampshire.
yes, kind of like New Hampshire. You can do that. Like if you lived right on the border, you just go. So you got no state tax, and then hey, I can just drive instead. I'm going to the Walmart, over the bridge, and I'm getting all the stuff I want, and I'm not going to pay any sales tax.
Hmm.
So very friendly in terms of that. Portland, again in Oregon, is
Hmm.
is the major hub, and Portland's right there. Portland's like 12 miles away. So
Ah,
you've got access to the international airport. You've got access to Portland, Oregon. Also the vibe that goes on there. That's another. You want to talk about the place for craft beer. That's it on the Northwest. It's all coming out of there. So
hmm.
there's a lot between the city of Vancouver, between Portland, Oregon, as far as all of the nightlife and museums and all of that stuff. Plenty of outdoor activities, and about 16% of the population is over age 65.
Wow. Wow.
However, home
Mhm.
prices are very expensive there. Now, again, not compared to, the East Coast, but to a lot of the other places we're looking at, it's much higher. Could be sticker shock for some other parts of the country you might be thinking about.
Yeah, I'm getting an estimated average home cost there of $430,000.
That's what I have.
Yeah, that's pretty steep compared to a lot of the other places we discussed.
Correct.
Retirement community areas, right?
Right, right.
Mhm.
But they're not the next eighth city for craft beer, so you sort of have to trade that off, right? In terms of thinking of it. You got
Yeah,
anything else with Vancouver?
on the positive or the negative?
Positive.
On the positive,
No,
Yeah,
if not, we'll go to
you
the
covered a
negative.
lot of the
That's fine.
positive,
All right, I'll
actually.
let you go to the negative. You go to the negative.
Oh, I'm going to the negative. Okay. Well, the unemployment rate there's a little bit higher than the national average. And that also means, the median income is a little bit lower than the national average. So once again, you got to watch out for the correlation between that and, some crime.
Right.
So you want to be careful about that. While you have a certain percentage of the population that is over 65, the median age there is about 37. So
Yeah.
it is a
So they,
younger population.
right. So it could be a little bit younger, a little bit, more apt to be doing other stuff in the city. Yeah.
Right. And for, as far as the cost of living, it is about 18% higher than the national average.
Right. It's extremely higher than
Right.
especially with some of the other places we were looking at.
So just something to be considering if you're going from, you're going to a fixed income. You just want to be aware of
So here's the thing. It rains a lot.
that.
So here's the joke that gets told in the Northwest, right? So the big mountain that's in the area is called Mount Hood, right? Mount Hood is in Washington, and the joke goes that basically, if you can see Mount Hood, it's going to rain.
Oh.
If you can't see Mount Hood, it's already raining. It
So it's
rains
either
a lot.
raining or it's going to rain. One of
Yeah,
the other.
it rains a lot, right? So you do get a lot of traffic because a lot of this is like a suburb, even though it's in another state of Portland, Oregon. So you get a lot of traffic that flows. So if you were trying to think of going, so realize you're going to get stuck in that flow of traffic that's going back and forth to Portland, Oregon.
Extremely green though. I mean,
But oh yeah, because it rains all the time. You get beautiful greenery. You got beautiful, scenery there. It's
mhm.
absolutely. Housing is expensive, as we just talked about. It's extremely high in terms of that. And there is a severe lack of public transportation. You have got to be prepared to be driving if you're going to be getting around generally, because most of that travel is going over into Oregon.
Or you're doing Uber and Lyft.
Yeah, something. I mean, that's one of the thoughts with it in terms of what you're dealing with. So,
Mm.
all right, last one, and this is on the list. So we did Colorado because Colorado graded out on our top 10 list. That's why we included them. They are in the West, so it sort of fit with this. But we chose Boulder, and really because this is more personal to me, because my wife and I were really at one point considering moving to the area because we fell in love with it.
Really?
Oh yeah, no, there's just such a vibe with the area that it was just very friendly. Everybody was real low key, and we just really liked the whole atmosphere of it. So I can say from having visited the area, a couple of different times, just how nice it is.
Hmm.
But it
That's one
has
of the places
got one, just to grade it out on our scale, it has the one of the most diverse craft beer microbrewery scenes in all of the country. This is Fat Tire, right? This is where New Belgium comes from, that area. Like
Mhm.
this, the median home cost, however, is through the roof.
Right.
Right, it's extremely expensive there in terms of it. So you might be better suited, maybe in a suburb of Boulder type of thing. There's no estate tax. It's highly ranked for its health care, especially for seniors. I mean, Denver is a half hour away, so you get all that Denver has,
Mhm.
including the pollution with Denver in terms of that. You do get all four seasons, so you do have that as well. And about 16% of the population is over 65. So there's some of that geriatric is that what they call that when we're getting older into the area?
Okay.
What do you got?
Well, I mean, just the fact, that this is one of the places I have always wanted to go to. I have not actually been to Boulder, Colorado. One place I've always wanted to go. Because the scenery there is just absolutely unbelievable.
Stunning, stunning.
Um, right. So just, for me being an outdoorsy type person, it's just a fantastic
Yeah.
place to be for that part. I think, and along with that, there's just unbelievable amounts of activities you can do outside, from rafting and kayaking to hiking, cross country skiing. Um, and then it says Evan El Dorado is a small ski resort. It's only 45 minutes to the west of Boulder, Colorado.
Right.
Now, So that's some of the positive there. Um,
So we can go to the negatives. We can bring in a negative, right? So the negative with Boulder is just like some of these other northern places, you get very, very unpredictable weather.
hmm,
The weather can turn, and you can get very, very cold in the winter and snow, right?
okay.
That can happen. Traffic can be a problem because again, there's not, people are used to driving there.
Hmm,
Not that they're not used to driving here, but they tend to rely more on driving than they do anything else, so you can get congested.
okay.
Got a extreme high cost of living, it's above the average, and the housing is very expensive.
Because everything has to be shipped into there, right? I mean, nothing's close.
Correct.
Um, the other thing too that may not be a con is, I mean, this may be the part you like it. It's almost like a leftover hippie population there.
Yeah, well, so I wasn't sure that I was grooving on that vibe, but it was it was definitely a more casual, more relaxed vibe. Coming from the Northeast, I will tell you there were some parts that you go visit, and it's like, gee, the people are so nice here, everybody's so relaxed, everybody's, just in a groove type of thing, and you just don't get that hustle and bustle that, I'm not talking like the South. Like sometimes you go in the South and it's like it's grinding to a stop because they just don't move, right? Everything just takes forever because that's just the way, the nature of the beast. But
Like you said, the people from New England are just a whole different type of animal. I mean, I
yes.
remember my daughter saying, "I'm going to Paris. I heard those people are rude." I go, "You're from New England. You got no problem at all. You're all set." That in New
Right.
York City, you're set in both of those arenas.
Correct.
Uh, but yeah, I think almost anywhere in the rest of the country is almost friendlier to your face, at least,
Yeah.
than most of the people in New England. Um, but other than that, like I said, you do get some snow, but it's gone like the next day.
Yeah, right. It doesn't hang around. It doesn't hang around like it does in other parts of the country. That was the other thing with Colorado, that they do get it. The mountains get it, obviously, the ski areas, and it stays. But the other parts of the area, it comes and it goes.
Yeah, the other thing you got to consider too is it is 5,400 feet above sea level.
A good point. Yes, I didn't put it in there as a con. That is one of the things that it can wear on you,
Well, the air
basically.
can get a little thin if you're not
Right.
used to that. I mean, I grew up on Florida Mountain and the Mohawk Trail, so I was used to that thin air. But if you're not used to that, that can be something where, until your red blood cells build back up, you can find, why am I walking? I'm feeling, out of breath
Right. Like I'm struggling here. Just this
because
doesn't
you're
feel right.
literally a mile high, right? That's
Yeah.
why.
Exactly. All right.
Uh,
So one of the things we say that everyone should do as you're getting closer, and we mean that 3, 5 years out to actually pulling the ripcord and jumping out and retiring. That if you're thinking about relocating somewhere, then you should be taking at least a week, if not two, and just pretending like you're living there, like you're not visiting and doing all the arts and fun stuff, right? It's not, hey, I'm going to go see this and I'm going to go see that and all the touristy stuff. I gotta like go and pretend I'm actually living here.
yeah,
Oh, so
rent
what
an
am I do?
Airbnb or something.
Yeah, something like that, where I'm doing it on a day-to-day basis. Like I'm just gonna get up, I'm gonna make breakfast, I'm gonna do what I want to do. Maybe I'm gonna go play some golf. Maybe that's what I want to do. Go down the beach, take a walk, whatever the case may be, whatever your thing is. But you got to see if you fit into that area. Like Craig said, some of these places can get a little crazy, and you need to be thinking about not only just, hey, I'm going when it's going to be 75 or 80 degrees and warm and sunny and beautiful. That if there's cold going on, I better be there when it's cold for a time period so I can at least experience what it was like to be shut in or cold or having to deal with some of this stuff to make sure I'm comfortable, that's where I'm choosing to retire.
Yeah, it might even be cheaper to go because you're in the off season and it's lousy. Right.
Well, yeah, whatever the situation, but you got to know, right? I got to see the extremes on that. If I'm narrowing it down and like say, okay, I want to choose Nevada, but I got to figure out what it's going to be like in January versus July. So I better go in July when nobody else goes because they're telling you it's insane. Because like Craig said, they're cracking eggs on the sidewalk and cooking them. but you got to go experience it, and you got to go do some of the stuff that you would want to do, whether that's take a hike or take a bike or do something, and try to play around a golf if that's your thing. Because if you can't, then it's scratch that off the list because it doesn't make sense.
Well, the issue when you go when you're on vacation, it's almost like dating. Everything's great and everybody's on their best behavior. But when you retire and you move to a place, that's like being married. And all the good and bad come into play, and you want to make sure you're prepared for that. The toothpaste, cap being left off the toothpaste, right?
Yeah.
Can I deal with that issue there? So,
I had to deal with that because I lost the cap to the toothpaste. Like, I still haven't heard the end of that one in terms of losing the cap. Still not letting me live that one down, but that does happen. So there's what he's talking about. All right. So what we do here with Aries is we help everybody have a clear vision of the road ahead. And if that road ahead is I'm looking to retire and I'm trying to get to someplace, how are you planning for that? How are you doing it? How are you setting that up? And how are you taking care of what it is you need to do? Right. So those are the things that we do. We do this by providing what we call the roadmap to financial awesomeness, trying to help you see exactly where it is that you're at, what the goal is you're trying to achieve, and the steps and measures that you need to take to make sure you get there. It's one thing to be saying, okay, I'm going to retire at this age and I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. But how are you going to afford that? How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to make sure you can do it? And that's what we try to do. You can see the link is on the bottom of the screen. Craig, if you can drop that into the chat box at the same time. But for any of those who might be watching this on our YouTube channel or on the website, you can see that's our link. It's our scheduler. If you have questions, go ahead and just copy and paste that or save it off the screen, and you can set up a time, and we're happy to do a consultation with you and just answer questions. All right. And keeping the think with a drink. So what's on tap? That's what I was supposed to do with this. Shoot, see, I forgot. Do you know what it is? Do you know what they call it when you try to get maple sugar out of a tree?
Tapping.
Tapping. There we go. See, it was tapping. We were tapping into tonight's drink with this. I forgot all about that.
I've actually made maple
Oh, I don't want you look
syrup
at
myself.
the guy who grew up in a mountain. I get it, right? So what's on tap? What's coming up? So next week we're going to do about buying a home. So this might be for the younger crowd, not so much the retiring crowd. But if you're thinking about buying a home, should you do it now or should you wait? And where do we see things going as we go forward in time with this? 11-3 is our spooktacular. This is the Halloween, the scary episode. What if you retired this year? And what would that look like for you had you retired this year and all the situations that would have occurred based on that? And on 11-10, we have a very special episode. It's financial literacy for women. We have a guest presenter we're going to have with us, Danielle, who is from Women's Money Matters. They're an organization that helps women try to be better who are on low income or what else was that mission, Craig? Right, that it was from a lower income to basically they give you coaching and help you sort of achieve. God bless. I have to watch. I have to go back to that with it because the vision board, right? That's what I was trying to think of.
Yes, they have a vision board, right? Trying to
Vision
create
board.
a goal for yourself and move you in that direction.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's fascinating and it's a wonderful organization. So hopefully you'll be able to tune in for that one on the 10th. And then for us, again, if you, Craig, any questions in the chat box?
I have no questions in the chat box at this
Okay.
time.
So no questions in the chat box. But if you ever do have questions, you can go to our website. It's www.ariesfoundation.org. You can shoot us an email. It's info@ariesfoundation.org. Or you can see that there's our scheduler. You can just schedule a time. One of us will be available. We're happy to answer questions, happy to go through any concerns that you might have in some way that we might be able to help guide you to where you're going. And on that, I am going to say, I'm going to stop the recording and say, have a wonderful evening. I thought you were going to chime in there. You usually do.
Well, you too. Bye-bye.